And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news, having a little bit of dialogue with those of you who were able to join us for the live portion. And of course, if you're listening anywhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. That is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X, aka Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. So we'll go ahead and get going here. Naturally, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see. And being joined today by a single feline, Dusty is in the room, but you cannot see her. Dusty, one of 20. I don't know what number she is, but she's one of 20. Now I'll go ahead and say hello to some of the people that have chimed in on the live portion. I see Helter is here, as well as Dragon and Brian have chosen to say hello today. Glad you could make it today, as always, as we get ready to dive into, of course, the realm of the ridiculous. Realm of the ridiculous, the world that we are stuck in. The mud ball in the middle of nowhere, or the boondocks of the galaxy, as Carl Sagan used to call it. D-Lo is joining us. Glad you could make it today, D-Lo. And we will go ahead and open up our first little article. It's not much, but in some ways it says a lot. And that, of course, is about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And it's a Fox News article. It says Kamala Harris grants first interview to CNN after weeks of avoiding the press, and will be joined by Tim Walz. CNN, boy, am I not surprised that they're going on CNN. And just an observation about Tim Walz here. Every time I see this guy, I don't really know anything about Tim Walz, except for he kind of stayed off the radar until now. He's running for vice president. And it's exposed a lot of things, a lot of really draconian policies and very left policies. And of course, the article that we were forced to read about how he's a man's man that bucks those MAGA toxic masculinity fellows. And I'm like, man's man, huh? Who said? According to who? Because he hunts. That's one of the reasons that they gave, because he hunts. But he wants to take away your guns. But he hunts. Let that sink in. What I noticed about the guy, and I haven't even heard him speak yet, so I don't even know what he sounds like. Does he sound all whiny and aggressive like Bernie Sanders? Does he have a good speaking voice? I mean, does he sound wet, like a solid milquetoast and drippy? I don't know what Tim Walz actually sounds like. But I do notice that every time I see this guy, he looks pretty stiff, like he has neck and back problems. Does that make sense? He's always locked up in this weird pose, and he looks like he can't turn his head. And for a man's man, boy, he's got a lot of jowls. He's got a lot of turkey neck going on there. There's a lot of flesh around that neck just kind of hanging. I see Cyberjack Sr. has joined us, as well as Monkey and Nature Nerd, who suggests that Tim Walz is a chronic liar. I don't know. That remains to be seen. And this article is very short, because all it literally says is that Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will be sitting down with CNN for the first joint interview after weeks of avoiding the press. Democratic ticket will join CNN's Dana Bash. For what? Is that a real name? Dana Bash. That sounds like a porn name. Hey, baby. My name is Dana Bash. That's like somebody's pornography pseudonym. Dana Bash for what's being called an extensive interview as they campaign in the battleground state of Georgia. The interview will air on Thursday night. That's tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I always say Eastern Standard Time because that's how they used to call it. Now they say Eastern Time. In a primetime special, this article will update as the story develops. So they get nothing else to say. But, of course, the point being that they went ahead and they put it off. They've been putting it off as long as they could. And now they're going to do an interview. And they're going to do it jointly instead of separately, which is unusual for a first round, I think, correct? I think that they've been stalling on purpose because she needs a lot of coaching, and they're going to put them on at the same time because they're hoping that he's going to keep her straight, and so that she doesn't fall off into a giggling, drunken stupor. I still suspect she might have a drinking problem. Can't prove it. I don't know that for sure. Raccoon has joined us, as well as Jeff, who wants to know why he's dressed like Trump. That'd be funny. Maybe he's colorblind and someone switched his tie. And he put it on not realizing that it was the dreaded red tie that only Republicans wear. And the Democrats have to wear a blue tie, a light blue tie, because the color blue infers honesty. I kid you not, that's why they selected blue. It implies honesty and sets a tone of relaxation. And Diane says, must be going forward, do not give up the ship, as they say, whoever they is. Yeah. Helter said they set the bar so low for her, they expect you to get excited at a softball interview. Yeah, if it's CNN, it's going to be easy, and it'll be prefab questions. Hell, she might even have a teleprompter for answers. I don't know. They do the same with gas prices, raise them $1 higher so that when they lower it 10 cents, and voters are morons. Of course, that's because they don't understand how gas prices work either. The majority of what you're paying is taxes, state, city, federal, and even county, in some cases, taxes. That the gas station is probably making 14 cents a gallon off of it. The gas company, whatever amount they're making, half of that is going to taxes for over-the-road expenses because they get regulated into the ground. My wife used to drive an 18-wheeler. They get taxed all over the place. All over the place. They're harassed constantly by state troopers and by state regulations. Sean is here, and Raccoon says buck naked. That's what is his name? That's from Seinfeld. That's George Costanza's porno name. Dragon says joint interview means she's not capable of doing it on her own. This is like her big brother walking her to first grade. How incompetent, and she wants to run the country. Well, she won't really be running it. I just want to throw that out. And Legends is here. He says, good news. I gave the dog I was looking after to someone else. My dog is returned back to normal. Okay, yeah. Legends was having a conflict between two dogs. Mentioned that yesterday. Nature Nerd says the Indian reservations have gas for $1 cheaper since they don't have a gas tax. Correct. Absolutely. And yeah, buck naked. That name does sound like a porno name, though. That threw me for a second there. Dana Bash. I'm Dana Bash. Oh my God. I don't know what to tell you. My name is Crash. Crash Landing. There you go. And Dilo says the 18-wheeler, that's right, the tractor trailer. She used to drive for Werner. But they delayed this as long as they could to cover for her. And they're not letting her talk by herself because they can't be sure if she's going to be sober. That's my guess. They don't want her to trail off on her own too far and fall apart into a giggling mass. And Jane is like, porno names. Yeah, that's right, porno names. Dana Bash, who will be interviewing Kamala Harris, or Kamala, or Kamala. I don't know how the hell you pronounce it. I hear it all different ways. And Tim Waltz, who will be holding her hand through it to make sure that she doesn't throw up vodka on herself. Dana Bash will be doing the interview, and I swear that's a porn name. I was like, what did you do before CNN? Is that how you got the job? Eric Peters says, I'm a strong woman. I don't need no man except for my first interview. That's right. Jane says Crash Landing is some porn name. Well, somebody asked me that once because of actually on account of George Costanza and his whole I need a porno name. My porn name is Buck Naked. And someone asked me, and I said Crash Landing. And that was the first thing off the top of my head. Crash Landing. Buckle in, everyone. It's going to be a wild ride. Sorry, went down the rabbit hole there. And we're going to follow that rabbit hole all the way to California. This one will knock you out. You're living in California? You're going to be upset. The Center Square has this article. California Senate has passed the zero down, zero payment home loan for illegal immigrants only. Okay. Are you mad yet? Are you mad yet? You should be, for a lot of reasons, even if you don't live in California. The California Senate passed a contentious bill to allow for undocumented immigrants illegal to use the state's zero down, zero interest home loan program despite national backlash following coverage of the bill's looming passage, with 23 votes for and 11 against, including all 9 Republicans and Democratic state senators. Catherine Breyer, I don't care who all these, bill narrowly passed the 21 vote majority threshold in the Senate. Narrowly passed. California's Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program, and that is the name of the program. You know how I can't stand bullshit, oxymoron, red tape, made up names for these programs that siphon off tax money. The California's Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program. Give me a damn break. Allows applicants to secure loans of up to $150,000 or 20% of the home's purchase price, or about what a tip is, with zero down payment on the state loan and no payments. In exchange, the state receives the original loan amount plus 20% of the appreciated gain when the home is refinanced, sold, or transferred. This year, the state allocated $255 million for that program. Unbelievable. And Tuck says their porn name was Chip Beef. Chipped beef. Jane says I might use that when I go dating online. Crash Landing. And yeah, no, you can't use that one. That's mine. Although I do not go dating online. I am married. No for me. Dilo says that is BS. I live in California. No kidding. Where's your loan? Where's your 0% down payment? Where's your $150,000, Dilo? Nature Nerd says in the UK you can actually own land, and families have owned land for centuries. Do they have to pay tax on that land? If they have to pay tax on it, they don't own it. But that's frustrating on a lot of different levels. Quote, with many legal residents not able to afford a home, should we really be giving free cash to illegal immigrants? Every dollar that goes to an illegal immigrant is one less dollar available to legal residents, including veterans, teachers, and families, according to the California Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones. He also says California already spends $5 billion per year on free health care for illegal immigrants. Will it ever be enough for the Democratic political or the Democrats' political agenda. No, it won't. No, it won't. Not until they've completely crushed everybody and squeezed every dime out and the entire state goes bankrupt. And then Helter says this is what people in power have always done, weaponize the poor and the immigrants against the rest of society. A similar housing phenomenon is happening across the country. Jane says in California, who's paying for the free home lottery? The taxpayers. Nothing is free. This is the thing that needs to be understood. Nothing is free. Nothing. Nothing is free. No matter what it is. Oh, we need free school lunches. We need free health care. Free this, free that. None of it is free if it uses tax money. They're taking it from one person and putting it into someone else. And that may not need it or deserve it or legally be entitled to it, or it goes on and on and on. This is what goes on and on. Delo says they could use the money they want to buy a home. I bet. And I mean, if you're a citizen and you were born here or you earned it and you're contributing to society, why should someone who snuck across the border get ahead of you? Dragon says, go ahead and give them the American dream for free, California, while everyone else fights tooth and nail just to stay afloat. No kidding. No kidding. The real problem here is this is an incentive for more people to try to sneak into the country. We already, ever since of the Biden administration, when he signed an executive order to kick the doors open at the border and stop all the policies that were in place to keep everyone out, when border encounters went from 800 a day to damn near 8,000, 10 times what they used to be. Ever since then, they've been flooding in here. Come one, come all. We'll give you free free housing, free food, free clothing, free health care, free school, free whatever the hell you want, free prescriptions, free dental. Hell, again, I've pointed it out many times. Veterans can't even get free dental. Give me a damn break. Free legal services. Shit. It's embarrassing. Jane says when they lived in California in 2016, the Hispanic and Chinese coworkers told me they had to go to class on caring for home and only gave them a list of homes to pick from. But the down payment was very low. Maybe it depends which city in California does this for free homes for immigrants. And Urban Angst has made it. Glad to see you here, Urban Angst, joining us from Canada. Now, this is something I wanted to open up because everybody is all on, and Gary Edwards says greater chaos means bigger government. Exactly, because they've got to expand in order to control the chaos. So that means more laws, more regulations, more taxes, and that means all the little guys get crushed even deeper. Or didn't you read Yertle the Turtle? Remember Yertle the Turtle from Dr. Seuss? The turtle on the bottom until he couldn't take it anymore. I think that's one of the banned books. Hold on a second. I'll go through my vinyls. I've got one here. Yertle the Turtle on vinyl record. Voice acted by Dr. Seuss. Theodore Giesel did all the voice acting for his vinyl records. And he's pretty good at it. He does like 10, 12 different voices on here and sounds different. It doesn't sound like him doing the voices. You know what I mean? He was a good voice actor. I'm surprised. But yeah, Yertle the Turtle. This is important. That's an important political story. Some of his work, it went right under the radar. You know, when you're a little kid, you don't get it. When you're older and you can think about it better, then you understand. Urban says even Trudeau is pretending to reverse his policies on immigration. Of course he is. But I wanted to share this because of that whole, like, what did they call it? Project 2025 or whatever. And everybody said, saying that that's Donald Trump's and that it's crazy and everything. This is his actual agenda, and it's Agenda 24, or excuse me, Agenda 47. I'm looking at the wrong number. Agenda 47, i.e., 47th president. And this is what he says he wants to do. So that whole Project 2025, again, has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This is his agenda on this list. And this is DonaldJTrump.com. Okay, hashtag or DonaldJTrump.com /platform. This is his official website. Okay, and he's got only 20 things on this list. So forget all about Project 2025. This is what's real. Nature Nerd says no property taxes in the UK for properties worth $250,000. And Gary says in The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, the corporations enticed immigrants to America in order to undermine labor unions. Yeah, The Jungle's a great book, although most copies do not have the last chapter, because in the last chapter, the whole story takes a real sudden, very socialist agenda turn. Very socialist agenda turn. And it doesn't fit the story anyways. You can find it with that in there. And there's also a last paragraph that's also omitted that's usually not even in those copies. So the very end of it, there's a guy who's a socialist talking about how great it is to be a socialist. And the hero of the story is like, oh, wow, socialism, that's so cool. And it doesn't even fit the rest of the story. It's like, what the hell are you doing, Upton Sinclair? Out of nowhere, we're talking about socialism here and how great it is. But then there's a very last paragraph at the end that talks about how while he's standing in there, police bust in and arrest him because he's got a warrant. I can't remember the name of the main character from that story. It's a good book, though. It's a good book, and it's because of that book you have the FDA, because Theodore Roosevelt was offended by the book, and how the book explains that more people died in the Spanish-American War because of contaminated tinned meat than getting shot. But here's Trump's agenda. It says seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. That's possible. Carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. This is also possible. People are like, how are you going to do that? Trust me, it ain't that hard. It can be done. It can be done if you really want to do it. End inflation and make America affordable again. That's plausible. Plausible. Make America the dominant energy producer in the world by far. That's possible because we have the resources. The current administration shut those resources off. Number 6, large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. Fair enough. It can be done. You don't need as much tax money as they take. I've said it 1,000 times. They can operate on half of what they take from us in taxes if they spent the money wisely, and they don't. Number 7, defend our Constitution, Bill of Rights, and fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. Number 8, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country, all made in America. I don't know about preventing World War III and restoring peace in Europe or the Middle East, especially the Middle East, which has never had peace, going back all the way to Mesopotamia and the I think it's Mesopotamia has the earliest recording writings for about 10 to 11,000 years ago. There's never been peace there, so good luck. End the weaponization of government against the American people. That would be nice. Stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. I don't know if you're going to stop foreign drug cartels unless you're willing to go there and stomp on them. Strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest and most powerful in the world. That's plausible too. Keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. It might be too late for that. Fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. Cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations. That's entirely possible and should be done because the electric vehicle mandate is total garbage. Cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, racial, gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content to our children. I agree with that. No child should be exposed to anything of a sexual nature in school. Keep men out of women's sports. Number 18, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. That one, it comes into question, where are you going to deport them to if they are U.S. citizens? Where are you going to send them? Although, who was it? Was it Jordan said they would take them? And Gary Edwards reminds us that the name of the character from The Jungle was Jurgis. That's right, Jurgis. It was a long time ago that I read that. Secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. And number 20, unite our country by bringing it to a new and record level of success. Can you do that in 4 years? You know, it's easier to destroy something than it is to fix it. Nature Nerd said, should we have a right to drones since governments are going to crack down on them? Well, you know, there's a huge issue with that. And I've talked about that on Prepper University because people talk a lot on the Prepper channels about shooting drones down. And I put out a warning like a year ago. Don't do that. Do not do that because you don't know who that drone belongs to. And technically, the U.S. government owns all airspace. All airspace. The zone of your protection, like on your rooftop, for example, or around your trees in your yard, is something like 3 to 5 feet from the property. Anything like 3 to 5 feet above your house or around the circumference of your trees, for example, is technically government property. So you shoot down a government, and it's regulated under the FDA, not the FDA, oh God, I'm drawing a blank. It's not the FDA. It's whoever regulates air control. Gary Edwards says both socialism and capitalism are toxic on a national level. One is 1984, the other is Hunger Games. But if you fuse socialism and capitalism on a local level, you get Mayberry and Bedford Falls. Yeah, you think so. It doesn't work that way, though. Nature Nerd says schools should have more local control for the curriculum like it used to be instead of bad federal standards. Well, whenever you inject the federal government into something, it's the FAA, right? You don't own your airspace, technically. So you're shooting down their drone over their property. Yeah, Urban just verified that. FAA. I got to befuddled because I said FDA earlier, and that was still on the back of my mind there. But no, the thing is, though, Gary, I've talked about this before. All forms of government can be made to work. Any one you got, doesn't matter. Communism, socialism, capitalism, a monarchy, a democracy, anything you got. an aristocracy could be made to work. If it was a aristocratic government or plutocratic, I guess, correct, government, all of them can technically be made to work and be beneficial to people, but only if the leadership can 100% be trusted. And it can't. Nowhere, under any system. Some systems work better than others. And of course, the more socialist or communist you go, the more government control there is and the more room there is for corruption. Open corruption. You know, not just stealing money like in a capitalist society, but straight up like Soviet Union, we're sending people to slave labor camps and having mass executions corruption. Like Sun Tzu said, you know, some leaders will burn down their kingdom to rule over the ashes. Scary thought. But yeah, any form of government can work if the leadership can be trusted. And that's why I've often referenced the Smurfs. The Smurfs society works because Papa Smurf can be trusted. He loves and cares for the Smurfs. He would never lie to them or hurt them. You can't say that about any person. You just can't. You know, and there are people that technically would be good enough to do that, but you couldn't get them, A, to take the job, or B, keep them safe if they did take it. Brian says most property in New Jersey is privately owned. Only a small percent is owned by the state. They still tax it though, don't they? As we shift around here, we're going to jump to New York City. New York City. And that is the center square giving this article. New York City launches a campaign to highlight welfare benefits. Welfare benefits. And you see the sign there. Building a more affordable city. New York City is putting money in your pocket. We put our hand into someone else's pocket and took the money, but we're going to give you a taste. We're going to give you a taste of it. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is trying to get more low-income people on welfare with a new campaign highlighting the process of qualifying for food stamps and other public assistance. Because Lord knows, people who are in poverty, especially career welfare recipients, have no clue how to get benefits. Never mind the fact that all of them work with a social worker whose job it is to expose you to benefits. But what do I know? Adams rolled out his, quote, Money in Your Pockets campaign on Monday, which aims to screen and educate New Yorkers from underserved neighborhoods about which state and federal public benefits they may be eligible to receive from the city. You know, New York is practically bankrupt, and we're doing this. The Democrats said the initiative seeks to help low-income New Yorkers save money by assisting them in enrolling in public benefits to which they may not have previously known they were entitled. Trust me, if you're on any kind of public assistance, you know every dime you can squeeze out of any crack in the entire city. Believe it. Quote, government needs to help more people, Adams told reporters at the briefing. The people should not have to meet the government. You may not have a Metro card to come downtown, so we need to come downtown to see you and communicate with you in the community and communicate with you in the community. He said it twice. He must have read it wrong off the paper. Under the initiative, I thought I made a mistake. He said it twice. Under the initiative, more than 300 city employees with the Public Engagement Unit, give me a break, will team up with college students to fan out across 20 underserved, I don't think I've heard that term before, neighborhoods to assess whether area residents qualify for one of 70 city, state, and federal benefits programs. Those include cash assistance, the earned income tax credit. Oh, trust me, they're getting that. and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, previously known as food stamps. Quote, we do this by knocking on doors, by making phone calls, by sending peer-to-peer text messages, by showing, you know what? Those people are not your peers. Please don't tell me that. By showing up at your events, PEU Executive Director Adrian Lever said in a statement, everything we possibly can do to make sure we're meeting New Yorkers where they are. How much is that costing for them to run around and do all that? More bureaucracy. Monkey says communism can only really work like in the Smurfs if the humans can get rid of the natural desire to rule, as in total power or anything that would put themselves all above the others. Also, you have to be willing to go along with it because, as you recall, the Smurfs, when Papa Smurf puts his foot down, they listen. They act up sometimes, but when he gets stern with them, they know he means best, that he means well, and that their best interest is at heart. And they listen. People don't listen. Not in the real world. Gary says the problem in America is the eradication of community in favor of corporations. Corporations redirect the generated wealth of local economies into the pockets of the rich before it can be reinvested. I don't know, Gary. A lot more of it seems to be the undermining of the nuclear family by our own federal government. Whether or not that's influenced by corporations or not remains to be seen, but politicians are still at the forefront of that. They undermine families in public schools. They do it in hospitals. They do it with social workers. They've torn the nuclear family completely to shreds. There's almost none left. They beat it out of us and made everybody selfish and arrogant. Johnny says, walking home, but we'll watch the replay. Where are we here? Urban says, well, that's one way to register the undocumented. Oh, yeah, no kidding. And Nature Nerd says, Kamala syndrome, repeating words twice in a row in a speech or article. Yeah. And Nature Nerd says, Ukraine's economy is being propped up by Europe and American taxpayer money, almost like communism. Yeah. And that needs to stop too. I'm surprised that Trump didn't have that on his list to stop sending money to the Ukraine. This is frustrating. Again, these people, a lot of people in those communities, it's a career for them to earn welfare. They're already getting every nickel and dime they can squeeze out of that system. They're aware of what's available to them. And you know what? If you're getting all that, you can get your ass on the metro and go downtown and talk to a social worker. They don't need to go door to door at the taxpayer expense. How much is that going to cost every year? How much is that going to cost every year? And Max likes the beard. Thank you, Max. Well, again, my wife likes it. She wanted me to grow it and to see what it looks like, and now she likes it. So I guess I'm stuck with it for a while. Going to keep the beard for my wife. Naturally. And what was the name of this program? What was the name of this program? The initiative. I wonder how much this costs the city every year for them to even run this operation. Again, you know, it's their job. When you go in for benefits, if you go to the Department of Public Welfare, Social and Rehabilitation Services, whatever the hell they call it in New York. I know in Kansas it was SRS, Social and Rehabilitation Services. When you go in there, you sit with a social worker, and that's their function at that time. Okay, let's see what you're entitled to. Let's see what we can do to get you going here, or if you are eligible for anything at all. That's the initial function. These people know. I mean, the programs have been around for decades. They know they can get earned income tax credit. They know they can get welfare. They know they can get SNAP or food stamps. They know they can get free medical and dental, by the way. And dental, because they do get dental coverage. It's not necessary for them to run around and do that. And I'll leave that up there from Gary, so you can read that if you want to. Talking about government disallows self-sufficient cooperative intentional communities using infrastructure regulations. Right to assemble should include the community. And a lot of that got screwed up when when Clinton allowed for banks to become national. Banks used to be only regional in the United States, and they were kept from being national by government regulations so the collapse wouldn't affect the entire country, which eventually happened. That eventually happened with the housing market crash. Urban says, sounds like a pretense in order to gather information on citizens while inside their neighborhoods. It could be. Fluke Man is here. He says he's got a cup of tea. And Nature Nerd says 99-year leases from China and Vietnam are cheaper than property taxes, even though it's not owning the land. Government doesn't want you to own land. Okay, they really don't. Now, this one will throw you. Okay, this is an article I came across, and I wish there was this was more national news than local news. I'm going to read this off of an online newspaper. And it has to do with what happens when cancel culture, DEI, and political correctness blow up in your face. And this is a Sentinel article. All right, the Sentinel newspaper. Commanders are facing a lawsuit. You know who the commanders are? The commanders are what the Washington Redskins used to be called. And they changed their name because they didn't want to hurt Indians' little feelings. Now the little Indians are suing the commanders. Can anyone guess why? You'll love this. The Washington Commanders are under fire from the Native Americans Guardians Association based in North Dakota, who have sued the commanders for their recent name change and accused them of defamation and conspiracy. So to be more inclusive and to not be racist against Indians, they got rid of the name Redskins and they got rid of the Indian head logo. Now Indians are suing them for doing it. You'll love the reason why. The old Redskins logo wasn't a generic Native American face. It was actually the face of Chief John Two Guns Whitecalf of the Blackfoot Indian tribe. He was on the side of the Washington Redskins helmets for 48 years. Walter Black Wetzel, another Blackfoot member, led the movement to get him on the helmet in 1971. Whitecalf was well known across the country and in parts of the world, being vocal about U.S. policies and the mistreatment of Native Americans. He championed Native issues in Washington, D.C., spending time with President Calvin Coolidge. He was also the inspiration for the face that appeared on the U.S. Mint's famous 1913 Indian head nickel. He was also a famous spokesman for Glacier National Park in Montana. He was so famous in the United States that upon his death in 1934, he received an obituary in the New York Times. And Brian said, exploitation? Yeah. So the family and the Blackfoot Nation are pissed off now because he was, not that anyone knows who he is now, Chief Two Guns, has been forgotten about, but he was on the Indian head nickel. That was him. And the Washington Redskins, that was him. He was famous enough. One of the earliest famous Native Indians in Western culture. And the Redskins erased him because they were trying to be inclusive. And it's backfired. And it's kind of funny. And I see what Dragon wrote there, and that's actually kind of where I'm going right here. I'll read that in a second. It's funny how they keep erasing real history to show how unracist and how inclusive they are. And Dragon says they have quite a colorful history with legendary players and 3 Super Bowl wins. They got to bring back Aunt Jemima so I can buy her pancake mix again. Now she's called Pearl Milling. What a joke. Yeah, that's the thing, because, of course, Aunt Jemima, as it were, was a real person. She was, read her story. It's incredible. She was a slave. She was born into slavery, obtained her freedom, and ended up being a millionaire. That's a success story, folks, a real success story from well over 100 years ago. That should be championed a lot more than George Washington Carver for making peanut oil alternatives. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. I'm sure I've told this story before, involving my sister and George Washington Carver. No, she's not that old, but anyways, they erased her. She was a real person and a real success story, real Black Americana. So was Uncle Ben. Real person, famous, or true rags to riches story. And they erased him. And they erased Chief Two Gun too. Only this time they're fighting back. Now, the Aunt Jemima's family tried to fight back because they were absolutely mortified that the company was erasing her. They were mortified. They were like, hey, don't you know about this woman's history? Are you kidding me? Oh, they know. Urban says in the CFL, the Edmonton Eskimos had to change their name to Edmonton Elks, like a seniors league Legion lounge. And Flukeman says, why didn't BLM sue when they removed Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben images? Oh, wait, it was racist to begin with. Yeah, because they don't know any better. They don't know the history. They don't want to hear it. They don't care. The funny thing, what it reminded me of was my sister and her George Washington Carver essay. Okay. So, yeah, Loyal says Pepperidge Farm remembers. I remember those commercials. Pepperidge Farm remembers. The cookies. I used to like Pepperidge Farm cookies. I haven't had any in a million years. I used to eat them in Boston. It's a big thing in Boston. But the thing is, she had an essay that she wrote about George Washington Carver, the peanut guy, right? And she wrote it one time and submitted it every year because she didn't want to have to write a new paper every Black History Month. So all through junior high and high school, so like 5 or 6 different times, she had submitted the same exact essay and got an A on it. And I saw her essay because she still has it. And I'm like, this is wrong. Because her essay says that he invented peanut butter, and that's not true. That's about the only thing he didn't do with peanuts. There was already such a thing as peanut butter. There was already such a thing as peanut oil. What he was doing was demonstrating different uses for peanut oil or byproducts to encourage farmers to rotate crops, which they should have been doing anyways. And he figured if industry knew that there was more uses for peanuts, they would allow for more rotation and not just use cash crops, which basically rapes the soil. You can't keep planting cotton, keep planting corn, keep planting tobacco. It ruins the soil. And you have to keep dumping chemicals into it. And that's just it's not a good thing in the long run. And so he was like, yeah, rotate your crops. Peanuts, man. And I'm like, this article is wrong. So for 5 or 6 years in junior high and high school, she was submitting an incorrect paper on Black History Month and getting an A for it. Because you know why? Because the teachers don't know the damn history either. They don't know, or they don't care. But Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's stories are much more culturally significant than was George Washington Carver, and they pound him out on February during Black History Month like there's no one else in the world. It's crazy. Helter says, first they complained because we were mocking Indians. Now they're mad because they changed the name. Make up your mind. Tatted up, blue-haired, social justice warriors. The thing is, the Indians themselves, when it comes to that kind of stuff, and that was the big argument with the Kansas City Chiefs. They were arguing about that all the way back when I was still living in Kansas, because Kansas City Chiefs is the football team out there, and the Indian community doesn't care. You have U.S. senators. Oh, this is so horrible. They're making fun of Native Indians, and the Kansas City Chiefs need to change their names, and the tomahawk chop is racist, and all the rest of it. And you go and you talk, and a lot of indigenous Indians in Kansas. Okay, you go and talk to them, and like, I don't give a damn about a football team. I don't care what they call them. They don't care. They don't care. People who pretend to care on their behalf are the ones that get these kind of things done. Okay? Gary Edwards says, didn't the Tom and Jerry cartoons hire Hattie McDaniels to be the voice of the cook? She was wonderful, but you can't do that today. I think that's who it was. But no, it wasn't the cook. That was her house, I think. She was the homeowner. I don't think she was a servant in those storylines. I think she was the homeowner. But when Tom and Jerry, I've talked about this before, when they put Tom and Jerry, the first release to DVD, they changed the voice, and everybody was so outraged that they had to reissue discs to anyone who requested it that put the original voices back in, because they thought they were being all-inclusive. Oh, we don't want to offend anyone, so we're going to take her voice out. There was nothing wrong with her voice being in there. Nothing wrong. There was nothing derogatory about it, about her character. You never saw her anyway. All you ever saw was her feet walking. So, I mean, seriously. Raccoon says they remember writing a paper on Dwight Gooden from the New York Mets. Dwight Gooden from the New York Mets. But wow, I thought that was amazing. I thought at least the family is standing up and saying, "Hey, why the hell did you do that? That was our great grandfather, whoever the hell he was to these people. Where do you get off?" And I'd like to see the family of Uncle Ben and the family of Aunt Jemima and all these other people grow a pair and do the same thing. Although, again, during the time that they were taking Aunt Jemima away, the family was protesting with the company. And they didn't get much airtime either, quite frankly. They should have been in the media more, and they were not. Well, I don't know what to tell you, folks. Fluke Man says, and yet they forced us normal people to put images of black people wherever we go, statues, movie, TV shows, and etc. Well, if it was somebody who mattered, I wouldn't mind so much. But George Floyd, I need to see a statue of George Floyd. That had to happen, right? Are we done pretending like he's Saint George Floyd now? Saint Jesus, how did it go? Jesus, Saint George, Lionheart Floyd. There's a YouTube channel called Heel versus Babyface, and he does like television and movie reviews. And every time there was a show he was doing where he kept mentioning George Floyd because it was trying so hard to be DEI, and he would sing it. Jesus, Saint George, Lionheart Floyd. Oh my God, it would crack me up every time he did that. Are we done pretending like he's Jesus, St. George, Lionheart Floyd at this point? Can we just admit the truth of the matter now that the official coroner's report's been released and we've seen all the video footage and we know everything that actually happened? Can we stop building statues and painting murals and pretending like this guy was the second coming to Jesus already? Brian says, if you have blue hair or face piercings, you're mentally ill. Or there's something else mentally wrong with you. You know what's funny about that, Brian? Okay. Kidding aside. the blue and the green and the pink hair and the 50 facial piercings and the eyeball tattoos and all of this other stuff. How much time people spend investing in looking exactly like everyone else in their peer group while convincing themselves they're being unique and different. That's the mental illness aspect of it. I'm my own person. I'm my own person. I'm being what I want to be. I'm doing what I want. I'll look the way I want, but you look like him and her and her and him and her and this and they and that. You all look the same. You all smell the same. You dress the same. But you're different somehow. Somehow you're unique. I can't see it. I can't see it. And these young people, they don't get that. They don't get it. I'm going to cover myself head to toe with tattoos. You and everybody else. What the hell does that mean? You got tattoos, you don't know what they are in places that you can't see them. I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? People are crazy, Brian. People are crazy. And they do that. They have that they do that to be, they've fooled themselves into thinking they're original. They fooled themselves into thinking they're original, and they want you to validate it. And that's really the biggest problem, is when you have to force someone else to validate it. Okay? I mean, I've got this beard now, right? And there's other guys who have a beard. We're not in a club together. There might be a beard club out there somewhere, but I'm not in it. And when I walk around, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Beard, bitches. There it is. Whoop, beard. Suck it. Because I don't care what you think. I didn't grow this so other people would notice it. I didn't grow it so other people would notice it. And Tuck says, I've called them cookie cutter freaks since right after high school. That's not a bad analogy, Tuck. That is not a bad analogy at all. All these young people with no guidance, no worldly experience, no common sense, and very little willpower, trying to force you to look at them and accept them. Desperate for that acceptance. And if they need that acceptance so much, then they truly do not accept themselves. I need you so bad to validate me because I know something is wrong. It's kind of like in Bruce Almighty, when you remember where Jim Carrey, he meets God, Morgan Freeman, and he's standing on the wall and he's got his hands out and he goes, "Love me." And Morgan Freeman says, it doesn't work like that. You can't make them love you. You can't make them. Jane says, you're right about tattoos. My daughter's last boyfriend tattooed her name inside his thigh with an arrow pointing you know where. She was upset. That's weird. And then if they break up, what's he going to do? Flukeman says, U.S. servicemen and women painted an image of George Floyd in Afghanistan days before they left the country and was utterly outraged when it got painted over. In this situation, I agree with the Afghans. What do they care about it? Like they care about that. Oh, George Floyd, yes, he is my homeboy. Nature Nerd says, if you do your own thing, people will copy you. You're on the one that sets the trend. On the one that sets the trend. Gary says, if creepy misfits want to permanently mark themselves as antisocial, that's the price of freedom, I guess. Could be. Could be. And Urban says, Maslow's pyramid of human needs puts the need to belong at the very top. Yeah, for most people, I don't need to belong in anything. I don't care. Sooner or later, sooner or later you get to a point where if you've matured enough, you don't care. Yeah, and I can understand that hierarchy for younger people because you haven't found your place yet. But as you get older and you mature, if you mature, because trust me, there's people in my age category that act like they're freaking 12, that you reach a point where you realize that you don't need that. And that only thing that you should worry about, if it matters, is to yourself and to your immediate circle. I care about what my wife thinks, for example. And then from there, it gets real narrow. And Brian made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. Always appreciated. Always appreciated. I'll let you see Dusty here before I sign off. Come here, Dusty. Come here, Dusty. Good girl. Good girl. Here's Dusty, everybody. Haven't seen her in a while, have you? Hello, Dusty girl. How are you doing, sweetheart? Dusty, the Russian blue, Daniel's sister. As we go ahead and get ready to sign off again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find it Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Please find me there. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. Special thanks to Brian for making a donation to the channel. Goes a long way towards helping us with all the strays we take care of. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of it.